you're getting into playoffs regardless. If you're fighting for 6th or 7th, there's a big difference between those two.
Because once you're in playoffs, all bets are off. We've seen 6 seeds in the NALCS playoffs make it all the way to the finals.
It's absolutely possible, but right now we're going to be jumping into picks and bans for this game. This is what matters. This is what we're focused on. Bans going to be pretty standard stuff. Coming from the red side, Immortals taking LeBlanc and Rengar off the table. Their opponent's going to be responding with some solo lane focus of their own. Jace, Ryze, and Maokai all going to be eliminated from play by Team EnVy.
Yeah, interesting there how they have the multiple top lane bans, somewhat targeted at Flame, but it's distinctly lacking a Fiora ban, which is something that most people have ended up trying to take away from Flame, at least since he's had the good game on Fiora. And no surprise there with the first pick Kha'Zix.
No surprise with Camille being that last ban either. Everybody doesn't like to play against her very much. Kha'Zix, we've seen him become a very dominant force in the jungle. Very, very popular, just right under Rengar. Not nearly receiving as many bans, of course, but very powerful pick. Yeah, and it'll be good for LirA to get on Kha'Zix. He looked like he had a very slow start, at least in their game yesterday. And because they pick it so early, it obviously does give Immortals the chance to answer back with something. And in an interesting twist, I feel like they actually go with the Rek'Sai compared to the Lee Sin. Yep, they're going to be locking in that Rek'Sai for themselves. It's a pretty popular pick that we've seen across a lot of different teams playing that one. Dardoch actually has his most games so far this split on Kha'Zix. So when they took that away from him, that was denying his big pick. He locks in the Rek'Sai instead. The response to the Varus being picked by Immortals is going to be answered by Ashe from EnVy, and they're also grabbing Zyra to round out that bottom lane.
Yeah, and the Zyra has actually fallen further in this draft than we're used to seeing it in a lot of NA games. Either it usually gets banned by the blue side or picked very early, usually first rotation over, in this case it would have been on Immortals side, but they opted to pick Varus over Ashe, which is a trend we've been seeing early on this week. And they're fairly comfortable with the misfortune pick into Zyra.
And of course, the way that we usually see a lot of things happening in the new 10-ban system, the first 6 picks are going to be mirrored on both sides. It's going to be bottom lanes and junglers all picked up. So now the second 4 bans going to be focused on those solo lanes as the teams try to eke out an edge for themselves in mid and top.
I absolutely agree with that. And this is where we could see a Fiora ban coming out somewhere, because it's primed right now for Immortals to grab it with the Kennen ban. So that's why you see it. Kennen is something Seraph really likes playing. Fiora is something Flame really likes playing.
Get rid of them both.
Just trade some target bans.
Trade those back and forth. We actually saw Seraph pick the Kennen yesterday, but he blind picked it without knowing what his opponents were going to be using first. He got the Jace picked into it. Didn't go too well for him, but this time around that's not going to be happening. Syndra and Echo also going to be taken off the table.
Yeah, interesting how they just kind of trade bans there with the Syndra and the Echo. With the Echo ban, it opens up Syndra. Echo is one of the best things to play against Syndra in the mid lane. So pretty much just trying to counter whatever power picks they have thrown up in those solo lanes. And now Immortals kind of just has to blind pick one of them and decide which one. It's the mid.
Looks like it's going to be Corki picked up for Immortals. We've seen a lot of this guy so far.
Yeah, we really have, and we've seen a lot of Corki success against EnVy, funnily enough. So they haven't had a great track record against that champion. And very quick on their picks on the back end.
And hopefully Pobelter is going to be able to do some work with this, because Pobelter has not had a stellar start to Spring Split 2017.
No, he has not. So coming into today, he was the most deaths for a mid laner. Flame was the most deaths for a top laner. Immortals has been dying a lot. It's a general negative trend for them, but I agree with you. Corki has a little bit more of that safety, and we get to see
there we go. Gangplank going to be locked in for the Immortals top laner, as the EnVy squad is going to be rounded out with Nautilus in the top side and Orianna mid lane.
Yeah, it's one of the nice things I like about this new ban system is you usually find these roles that have an abnormally high number of bans towards it. So in this particular draft, with the Maokai, Jace, Fiora, and Kennen all banned, that's a lot of top lanes. So essentially Flame is pushed to 6th top laner, which gives you an excuse to pick something like Gangplank, which he's good at anyway. In fact, he was 4-0 on Gangplank over in the LCK in the spring split, the last time he really played competitively. So it's been one of his best picks in the past year, and he gets a good opportunity picking into the Nautilus here.
And you know, talking about Gangplank being an unusual pick, Nautilus is far from that. We've seen a lot of Nautilus so far. He's kind of the staple up there with Maokai, the big heavy CC tank in the top lane.
Yeah, very usual pick, I would definitely say right there. Looking at the overall team compositions, you can see EnVy has really put together a strong team fighting team. Generally Orianna plus tank, large amount of initiation and pick from the Ashe. That's super, super standard. Whereas you look at a team like Immortals, heavy poke, and they're going to be trying to scale into late game there.
And with LirA on this Kha'Zix, you mentioned at the start of the draft, you like seeing that get picked up first and foremost. LirA was the guy who in Game 2 yesterday that Envy did not have a very good game against Echo Fox.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That Envy had a very good game against P1.
Yeah, where Inori took over the game at like 13 minutes. Speaking of which, he was against a Rek'Sai, so...
Yeah, name flub. General point is still there. The Kha'Zix is a champion that LirA was the one person who in that game was doing well for himself. He has a chance to do so here, really get the game snowballing, and we are on to Summoner's Rift for the first time today in this series between Envy and Immortals.
Yeah, so we're really going to get to see the early jump in these junglers. So many junglers have been able to snowball games with... I just had the interview with Inori. He's talking about the jungler is obviously very strong right now, and there's enough junglers that are good at early games that they've been taking over a lot of games. So even if Inori was kind of suggesting that a lot of junglers wouldn't know what to do in the mid and late game, the opportunity is there just with the raw power, especially on something like Kha'Zix. So if LirA really does want to make his mark here, since he failed to do it yesterday, it would be with trying to have a huge Kha'Zix game right here.
You just have to seize the day, find that opportunity, and carry your team from the jungle. Keystone Mastery is going to be popping up on your screen. Not a lot to really be surprised about, but a lot of Thunderlord's Decree going to be showing up this game.
Yeah, not too surprising. Very, very easy to get that proc down in the bottom lane for the supports. Burst for Kha'Zix. Nothing really not standard there for the setup, so...
Yeah, they were able to move up in time bottom lane to make sure that Hakuho didn't get in a good position to spread those seeds around there, get that push shoved out, so good start down there for the Immortals.
I'm really interested as well to watch Flame in the early game, because that's really where he's just trying to play a survival matchup, and this is a good late invade. They have not been spotted. This will be a surprise for Flame and Dardoch.
Flame and Dardoch going to be jumped on here. LirA and Seraph looking to start things off. They find the lockdown onto Flame, going to be forced to flash away. Dardoch fails the flash! First blood goes the way of Envy, and they're going to take the red buff too.
And I gotta say, what is up with Dardoch this week? Yesterday, he took a Lee Sin Q into the turret to give away first blood death, and here he really badly flubs a level 1 flash. Then Flame teleports in. He doesn't have flash!
Flame TPs right back into the lane, only to find himself sent right back to that spawning platform. Express ticket. Envy's got the 2 for 0.
One of the worst starts for Immortals, and credit to Envy for going for those plays, but those plays should not result in 2 early game kills. This is a surprising play by Seraph and LirA. They get them, but right here, as soon as Immortals and Dardoch realize they don't want it, Flame flashes away. Dardoch's got to flash away too. Why is he flubbing back towards the
Doesn't
red
make
buff?
sense.
Unless he was going for like a last second smite flash out and trying to be really greedy, but he doesn't smite for the heal, he doesn't flash the wall, and then Flame makes a forward TP into the lane. Instead of just teleporting to the turret, he knew where Envy was. They both walked straight top and get the second kill. Inexcusable play by Immortal Flame.
And let's remember, this isn't Flame on a champion like a Maokai or a Nautilus that has a bunch of CC built in. He's always going to be useful, can be low economy. This is Gangplank. This is a carry.
Yeah, he was already going to be put in a defensive position against the Nautilus and the Kha'Zix. And I was getting into my point of saying, you know, come level 5 or 6, are they going to be able to turret dive him and get some kills? But that time is now, actually.
Yeah, just 4 levels ahead of time.
He is this early in the game.
No big deal. Seraph going to go ahead and pop his teleport getting back into lane, so neither one of these two have those TPs available, but the itemization difference going to be pretty stark considering you've got a Sapphire Crystal against the Dark Seal, the Doran's Ring, and the Corrupting Potion all together. Seraph's going to have an easy time.
Pretty spectacular start to be able to go Doran's Ring and Dark Seal that early on your first back on top of the Corruption Potion. And LirA is actually pseudo-hunting for Dardoch, but they, like ships in the night, pass through each other. Going to continue to jungle.
LirA getting himself out of enemy territory, going to be hanging around mid, seeing if there's any opportunity for anything there. A moment ago, we saw Ninja shoving Pobelter up under his turret. Let's go back and talk about him a little bit, because we mentioned how he's been having a rough split so far. Granted, he has played up against some very capable mid laners, so you can give him that sort of a bonus,
pass,
I guess. Yeah, just sort of a pass, I guess is a better way to put it. But at the same time, this is a guy that you're not expecting to be the death leader going into week number 2.
Yeah, I agree with that. Pobelter was almost one of the unheralded players on Immortals last year, but surprised many in the summer split of having some of the most player of the game awards of any player on the Immortals team, because really Reignover at the end of last split was starting to gank more and more for Pobelter, and he was carrying a lot of games. So you were thinking, with Reignover and Huni kind of vacating that throne of the best players on Immortals, this was going to be Pobelter's time to shine. And whether it's him pressing a little bit too hard trying to do that, I know he's been split pushing a lot, trying to make a lot of plays, but the team has just not been able to back him up there, and it's been a tough split. But here comes LirA in the bot lane.
Speaking of plays being made, Cody Sun gonna be forced to flashbacks. Not gonna do the trick though. 3 for 0, Team EnVy, LirA, 100% kill participation.
Yeah, and this is going from bad to worse very quickly for Immortals. Funnily enough, we were just talking about Pobelter struggling. He's the only one not to have some bad plays here. Cody Sun was dead to rights at the start of that play, and then they end up burning 3 summoners and still dying. And here,
Olleh is hanging around too long. I don't know what the plan is. I mean, you saw Dardoch coming in from behind, but what are you gonna do?
Yep, that's about it. You're gonna die if you're gonna stick around.
You're gonna get your support killed.
And every play that EnVy is doing is working right now, but they're not these crazy creative plays. They're just going for ganks, and everything is working. So now it'll be a test of whether or not they can take this 2,000 gold lead and actually pull it to victory.
2,000 gold at 6 minutes into the game is a very impressive start for a team that up until this point has struggled getting wins in the North American LCS. They have none under the belts, as we've mentioned, but it's not like they've been getting stomped in every single game. In 3 out of the 6 games that EnVy has played up until this point, they've been ahead in gold as Pobelter almost going to be in some trouble there. Gets
and here they go, they're level 6.
The turret. Here comes the dive onto Flame you were talking about, Jatt. LirA's underneath. Seraph's going to be soaking the turret for too long. You gotta be kidding. Flame's got 2.
Well, CaptainFlowers, we're in a game between teams that have picked a combined 1 match win up here, and it's getting a little sloppy early on here. This is the prescribed play. You are level 6 Nautilus, you dive, but Seraph takes turret aggro early as well as already getting hit, overestimates his ability to tank, and then Flame is able to get yet another barrel onto LirA as he's diving, and he's a little level 5 Kha'Zix who jumps in without flash. So yes, Flame will get the double kill, and that has a chance of rescuing Immortals' game.
Yeah, Jatt, we were talking about how such a bad start, it's just something you can't afford to have. How do you get back into the game after this? A double kill being gifted to you underneath your turret, it's one of the ways you can find your way back into the game.
On GP, and I also have to credit Flame for the work he did under the turret. I mean, this is why, as well, he has been a good Gangplank. 4-0 on it in the LCK Spring split. Also, he has drawn bans on it a little bit in the last few times he's had it kind of in meta, but GP's not super in meta right now, so very good barrel placement and timing, knowing how to survive. Not to mention, now that he has a few items, his CS becomes very strong at shoving it.
Max range vines finding their way onto Cody Sun in the bottom lane as Hakuho and Apollo take control in terms of the tempo and the pacing of this lane, shoving that up towards their opponent's turret, but the CS is actually going to remain dead even between these two. The only lane that can really be have that said of it, mid lane's got a nice advantage for Ninja, top side an equally nice advantage for Seraph.
Yeah, so we'll see if this game gets a little bit subdued since it's been rather crazy so far. Would not be surprised to see EnVy direct a lot of attention towards the bottom side since they have burned all 4 summoners and do not want to let those come back off cooldown. Not to mention, since Ninja has that advantage in the middle, and we talk about he can shove and potentially roam, which sets up 4 or 5 man dives if they really want to go for it.
Ultimates are also now available on Flame, on pretty much everybody except Olleh at this point. He's the only one who's not going to be working with that ultimate. Pobelter also has package ready for delivery at any point that he finds an opportunity for it, but we've seen a lot of times in NALCS so far this split, Corki struggling to make use of that early on in the game, as the Gangplank ultimate's going to be used just to push this wave in, give Flame the opportunity to get some extra lane control and really shove this into Nautilus.
Yeah, I can't say I approve of that usage of the Cannon Barrage, because the one thing that I liked about Immortals composition that I was just going to make a point on is the package from Corki and the GP ultimate make it really hard to dive the bottom lane. But now that they've burned the package to run to blue buff, burned the Varus ultimate, and they're down the GP ultimate, that is a juicy target.
And now Olleh is going to be smashed. Hakuho grabbing the killing spree. Apollo exhausted, but does it even matter? I don't think so. IMT, they're going to lose their support again.
Yeah, and it's because they do not feel like they have any cohesion right here. They should know that that is going to be a target. Dardoch actually was down there, but you can't just sit there for the Ashe arrow into Zyra. He was so close, and that was EnVy made a kill look easy.
And now EnVy's making the Dragon take look easy for themselves. LirA decides to just go over the wall. He's got the control ward in the pit. Immortals are going to be none the wiser, and a nice early Ocean Drake going to be helping those EnVy boys out during the remainder of this laning phase. Flame going to find some decent damage onto Seraph there in the top part of the map. Throws down the barrel in case Seraph tries to get cheeky and retaliate in any way. But although he's severely down in farm, Flame seems to at least be in decent shape for himself.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised that the farm lead is getting so out of control. That is some credit to Seraph for the denial, and that could also kind of explain why Flame wanted to ult the wave, because Seraph was freezing him out, and he wanted to try and reset the wave. The more natural way to do that is to have communication with your jungler, get him up there, and shove the wave in, but they were unable to do that. At least now the wave is bouncing back into Flame, and he should be able to pick up a few CS.
Still about a 2,000 gold lead for EnVy over the Immortals, taking it up almost to 2,500. So sitting on that same advantage, they were able to build themselves up earlier. Kha'Zix with the Skirmisher's Saber plus the Warrior Enchantment fully completed means if this guy's able to actually get on top of anybody, if he can set himself up in a spot where somebody can even face check where he's at, he's going to be ferocious with that burst.
Yeah, I have to agree there. But this, you're kind of wondering where Immortals would come back with their play, and we mentioned how EnVy picked out the really standard team composition of strong champions. They have the frontline, tank, good pick potential with the Ashe arrow, the cleanup, damaging jungler. Whereas you look at someone like Immortals and they got, you know, carry top, low to no CC, carry mid, no CC. Their main initiation is Cody Sun's ultimate or Dardoch tunneling in. So they're mainly a poke composition that generally is quite hard to play from behind. The one benefit they could get, though, CaptainFlowers, is if EnVy gets a little over-aggressive or face checks too much, which has happened so far this year.
Yeah, we actually saw it happen so far this game with that dive onto Flame in the top part of the map. They get a little bit too aggressive. They end up giving over 2 kills for 1, squander a little bit of the lead they had built for themselves, and that kind of contributes to those stats we were talking about earlier of being unable to translate leads into wins. But if you're going to translate leads into wins, LirA's the kind of guy you could do it off of. There was so much praise. For those of you who might have seen the series yesterday, Seraph had nothing but good words to say about LirA, about his respect for him as a player, as a jungler. And LirA right now, 2-1-3 on this Kha'Zix, pretty much equal farm with the Rek'Sai, really performing very well.
Yeah, doesn't realize he's standing on top of ward there and does get tagged by Cody Sun. What will that mean?
Piercing arrow, Dardoch, we're going to make it happen. Flash for flash, Ninja's going to be caught out. POB, nice flash away from the shockwave. Going to be making that one happen for himself. Hakuho, a rampage onto Cody Sun, double kill into Dardoch.
Yeah, and Flame cancels his TP because the impact of a GP coming in at level 9 is not equal to that of his Nautilus. So good on the notorious POB there for getting the solo kill on the Ninja. But after that, it was Immortals getting collapsed on pretty hard in the jungle and still losing the trade.
Olleh forced to flash lest he find himself his 3rd death this game. Hakuho 5-0 on the Zyra.
Yeah, that's a lot of kills early on in the game, but notice the initiation on LirA. Nice counter flash there by him, and then Apollo, boom, into the Ashe arrow as the Nautilus and the Zyra arrive. And honestly, Seraph kept Dardoch in tow, but he'd burned everything. They may have been able to pick up those kills without the team.
Very good stuff from EnVy, and that's just that damage support life that we're talking about right now. Everybody's saying, you know, damage supports are in the meta, and a 5-0 Zyra definitely capable of bringing a lot of threat as we eat closer and closer towards that mid game. Next Drake's going to be the Cloud Drake, and when that spawns, expect to see EnVy with control over the area as Dardoch loses control of the top part of his jungle, but at least gets the red buff for himself on the way out. Seraph and LirA just kind of playing that same game we saw back at the beginning of the game, looking to invade and make those sort of sneaky maneuvers.
Yeah, and they need to be able to bounce back in this game after what happened yesterday against Inori and Zig, where 12.5 minutes into the game, Seraph actually died in his base to a Rek'Sai. This is a much different situation right here, as LirA and Seraph are looking to kind of exert their presence on the map.
LirA thought he was going to get the better of Pobelter there, waiting in the brush for POB to walk a little bit too close and then grab him with some damage, but he actually gets way more than he bargained for. Corki's just very, very strong at this point in the game, able to deal some very rapid burst, and there you go, package going to be laid down, shockwave defensively, but here comes the Falc. Pobelter has got himself the kill, and with Dardoch nearby, he's gone.
And the second unassisted kill of the game for Pobelter onto Ninjas. So really, Pobelter trying to throw the team on his back here with Corki. Those are, I can't emphasize how rare it is to actually have 2 unassisted kills in the mid lane pre-15 minutes. No one else on his team actually has an assisted kill. So that, I know there's probably a stat out there. A team's first 4 kills in the game all being unassisted happens in almost never.
Right.
So this
you would expect someone else to help.
This is a hero ball for Immortals right now. Not really playing as a team, but still getting a few kills.
Just straight zeros down that right part of the scoreboard for the KDAs on Immortals. But at least they're hanging on. That gold difference that we talked about a little while ago is still the exact same. They've staunched that bleeding. Drake is going to be live in about 25 seconds. You can see a lot of members of Immortals heading down towards this bottom part of the map right now. Dardoch and Pobelter both looking for the opportunity to maybe make something happen, but in the meantime, they're going to be giving that blue over to Pobelter. Means the rocket spam is going to be never ending, and the shove in mid lane is going to be effective.
Yeah, they really need to start building around Pobelter here. Wait for that next package cooldown, and then try and pull something off. Because you look at the duo lane, there's a 5-kill Zyra with Magic Pen boots. You do not want to tango with that. GP is a very hard top laner to gank for, especially up against an armor stacking Nautilus. So they have to really work around Pobelter. And until then, although it is kind of against their nature since they always want to be trying to make plays, Immortals needs to play it slow and work around the mid lane.
Hakuho hanging around that Dragon Pit with LirA. Those two together going to make an easy Dragon Death Squad. Just getting in there, securing that one for themselves. No contest. Going to be taken just as easily as the first Ocean was. So a 2-for-0 count in that respect going the way of Team Envy. And those Dragons are the only objective being taken in the game so far. First Turret Blood is still up and still available for anybody willing to try to take it.
Absolutely, and we'll see if some of these dual lanes decide to swap up or down to a lane to try and get a run on that turret. It's really on Envy if they get to choose that, though, as Seraph goes for the solo kill.
Seraph getting very aggressive onto Flame, who's going to pop the ultimate defensively, keeping himself safe. Seraph backs away from it. Maybe he was thinking that there was going to be reinforcements?
Well, he knows he has the sustain advantage after that, and they did trade ultimates, so he was just not taking any extra bunch of damage. Here we go.
Oh, LirA's going to be squashed if he's not careful. Shockwave to turn things around. Pobelter's down. Dardoch having to retreat, but can he do it? LirA and Ninja will chase him down and stomp him out. Double kill LirA.
Woo! And the one place where Immortals was strong in this game, they do try to capitalize on it, but look where that fight took place, deep within the jungle of Envy. And Orianna had just been moving back to lane, so quickly arrived to the shield. That's what they need to turn the fight around. Pobelter did not have flash, so an incredibly dangerous invade considering the GP ultimate was also down when they made this play. And that 4-kill Kha'Zix is going to be scary.
And you can see him evolve those spike racks at the very end of the fight, so now he's going to be able to poke people that much better. He'll slow you down so much if you're isolated. It's going to be that much harder than ever to get away from this guy, who, by the way, now, 4-1 and 4, Maul of Malmortius also done.
Yeah, he's definitely snowballing ahead in items right here, and that's another thing that makes that jungle invade pretty difficult when everyone on your team is behind except your mid laner. They thought that because Pobelter was stronger than Ninja, they'd probably be able to win a 2v2, but when Pobelter did get tagged by that shockwave, that was pretty much it, and it's only going to get harder from here on out since Pobelter does the majority actually magic damage early on, and that Maw's going to make it harder to kill LirA.
That being said, at least Pobelter and Flame have hit their Trinity Force power spikes. They've got that first big item online. The parlays are going to start to hurt more. The barrels triggered off them are going to start to hurt more. And of course, Corki staggering those rockets can do some work if he doesn't get exploded by LirA. See ya! Ninja grabbing the kill.
And credit to Envy for going at the strength of Immortals as soon as Ninja needed the help. LirA has been there for him. Great start to the game, 9 out of the 11 kills for him.
Envy's looking like they're working together a lot better today than we've seen them in the past. And it's kind of what we were talking about with LirA, you know, being flown out here as fast as possible. They wanted him in the squad as soon as they could so they could get that practice with him. And even though they're still only working on a couple of days of it, they seem like they're more acclimated now. They at least had that first day with him to play and sort of get used to this.
Yeah, this could potentially get dangerous, though, as they're doing the Rip Herald and Dardoch trying to stop. Nope.
Going to be secured. LirA, the one given the buff, means he's going to have that much more burst on whoever he finds isolated, and this bug just goes from scary to scarier.
Misses his parlay on his barrel, and the two
GP mechanics.
Oh, Seraph, 3 barrels in a row. This is not going well. And it speaks a little bit to what we were talking about in the pregame. Yes, EnVy has looked better, but Immortals has also been making a ton of mistakes and overreaching. But it looks like that second turret might be going down to EnVy because they're going to try and stop it.
Dardoch and Flame looking to make the 2v2. Seraph taken very low. Rocket's going to be fired out. Flame's got to be careful. Seraph will flash. Everybody walks away. Turret's even still standing.
Yeah, he's got the Dark Seal though and a couple Corruption Potion stacks, so he can actually sustain a fair bit here. And it's on Immortals to try and get the assistance up into this lane because Hakuho Zyra has moved up now with double Magic Pen. They want it.
Now they're going to turn this right back around. Dredgeline misses though. Hakuho throwing down the Strangle Thorns. LirA is going to be forced to come in to finish that first one off. Bullet time fired out. Olleh looking to clean these guys up if he can, but now he's in trouble, forced to flash out. LirA and Seraph both walking themselves away. Pobelter looking to come in and clean anybody up if he can find them. Olleh and Dardoch still hanging around as well. Hakuho, good stoppage of Pobelter. And look at how much damage those plants are doing as Pobelter bounced forward, looking to find the Gatling guns into the rockets, into everything else in that Corki arsenal, but he will not find the kill, and instead, it's going to be a 2-0 turret advantage for Team EnVy.
Yeah, and a huge positive trade for them right there as they're able to get the mid lane turret. They only invested 3 people's time top lane, and essentially took the time of all 5 members of Immortals and still managed to get a kill as well as burn the Sterix gauge from Flame. So really another positive play for them.
And now EnVy, on top of all those plays, have a 6,000 gold lead. That's what happens when you start piling the turrets on top of the kills that you were already able to have.
Yep.
The gold lead just seems to balloon like crazy, and that balloon is only going to get bigger if Seraph can finally find this tier 1 top lane turret. You gotta be kidding me, man. 1 hit, 34 HP. 1 more Nautilus auto should be able to deal with that as soon as he gets the chance to, but it's not going to be right now as Flame's got control over the lane, going to be farming up as much as he can.
You can almost make an argument that Flame should have given his turret up, because then Seraph had vacated the local gold range, several hundred gold early on in the game that he could have denied. Eventually that turret's going to be taken down, you have to imagine. But understand the concept of not wanting to lose the turret, and now they might be looking for a turn. Very hard to kill Seraph. I don't think they have the damage.
Yeah, trying to go after this guy with 2 AD champions when he's got a Sunfire Cape, a Ninja Tabby, also now going to be working on that next big armor item with the Glacial Shroud in his inventory. Seraph's going to be nigh immune to everybody that's not Pobelter.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a really tall task for Immortals to do anything to Seraph, and we look at the way this game has been progressing for the first 22 minutes, and you think, we should have this, right? It should be a win they're able to close out. But they've had slightly smaller leads than this, especially in their series against COG. They've been unable to close the game out. So we have to really wonder, can EnVy clean their play up and take this in for a victory now with their 3rd Elemental Drake?
It is a legitimate question, but with that 3rd Elemental Drake being an Infernal, it's going to be that much more damage under their belts, especially for champions like the Orianna, like the Kha'Zix, like the Ashe, and even the Zyra is going to make a lot of use out of that. Pretty much everybody except for the Nautilus is ecstatic at having that Drake available for themselves now. Runaan's Hurricane and Essence Reaver also going to be done for Apollo. Ninja with his completed Luden's Echo and Morello Namicon also going to have some pretty big impact shockwaves if he can find them onto those value targets.
Yeah, interesting he's gone the Lucidity Boots instead of the Sorcerer Shoes. I see Sorcerer Shoes on almost everyone. It's much more early game burst, but the cooldown reduction will work slightly better for the supportive aspects, especially if he's looking to make sure Seraph can be incredibly unkillable. Mainly a preference there to get Summoner Spell cooldown.
Speaking of Seraph, just a little difference I want to point out. He did go for the Iceborne Gauntlet as opposed to the Frozen Heart that we've been seeing so much of lately. That item has kind of resurged back into the meta while the Iceborne Gauntlet has fallen to the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with just what your overall goal is in the game. Are you trying to be a super tank, or do you want to have more kill threat and split push pressure? And Seraph is a player who has really made his competitive career out of being a split push threat. So while he is on a tank, still adding his own little flavor there. And since he's so far ahead of Flame, if he gets the Iceborne, he can maintain his dueling potential for much longer.
speaking of things being maintained, that gold gap that we talked about a little while ago has been the same for so long now. Finally going to be bumped up a little bit as LirA manages to grab that tier 1 top lane turret. That's going to be number 3 for Team EnVy. That's the last piece in that outer ring of turrets that now hopefully they'll feel a little bit more comfortable moving up into enemy territory, putting down some wards, and looking for opportunities to really advance their game.
Exactly, and this is the test that oftentimes differentiates the teams that have just formed to the experienced professional teams, is how quickly they can access that second ring of turrets, because a lot of prep time has to be done. You got to get the deep wards in, you got to find a pick, and you also have to get your waves pushing at the right time to make it all the way in there. You've opened up so much more space on the map with which to potentially control, but it's not as simple as just killing the turret. You have to actually control the space.
There's a whole lot of steps before actually auto-attack turret to turn it into rubble the teams have to account for. And now Pobelter's got himself that package yet again. Immortals hoping that they can make something happen off of this. Of course, it's only available every few minutes, so once you have it, you're always looking for every single opportunity to get a good use out of it, while your opponents are going to be respecting that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see EnVy just play it passive, stay safe, stay together, wait for that to wear away.
Yeah, and we also know the drakes that they're going to be able to access this game. No mountain drake, because you can only get 3 different types of elemental drakes in a game, so they'll never be able to burst Baron hyper fast. Good thing they have Kha'Zix and Zyra though. Those kill Baron incredibly fast anyway, so they shouldn't have too many issues doing Baron as long as they can get some ward control in Immortals red side.
And Baron ward control is kind of the name of the game for both these teams right now. Everybody kind of fighting over this area to get some of that vision down. Plus, if a fight breaks out right here and you get a really good one going your way, Baron's your reward. Wave going to be shoved up. Cody Sun clearing this away as effectively as he can. Not going to be going with a crit-based build on this Varus, kind of the Yumu's Ghostblade, Edge of Night tier, more of an old school type.
Yeah, and we're really seeing a resurgence of that this week. Last week, everyone was doing the Essence Reaver build, and they were having trouble killing tanks anyway, even though it was supposed to be this late game build. The arrow misses. Do they still look to get a fight?
They're firing off those rockets. Hakuho going to be taken low. The burst comes out. Ninja's going to be number 2. Immortals have found an awesome opportunity. TP going to be completed from Flame, canceled from Seraph. LirA and Apollo head away as Immortals start the trek to Baron.
And it looks like they're going to let that advantage ride onto this Baron right now. 3v5, LirA, Seraph, Apollo alive. They do not kill Baron super fast. This has got to be a fight.
Volleys of rockets and arrows are going to be heading towards these guys. Seraph works his way right there into the middle, looking to disrupt everything. LirA exhausted, Dardoch secured. Baron's going to be taken by Immortals. Shut down onto LirA. Everybody's going to be killed. EnVy is aced. Almost. Seraph comes back to life. The GA delays the technical ace, but Immortals have found their shot.
Story of the split for EnVy right there. They have the lead, they face check, they die, and then Immortals is able to just parlay that advantage. And this was a straight up smite fight between Dardoch and LirA. He missed one last week. He said he could pull it off here. 674, gets the smite off right there on Rek'Sai, and then the patience of the exhaust right there to make sure that Apollo could not flash in and finish that kill clinches the fight for Immortals, and they're right back in the game.
This EnVy team commits the same sin that we've seen in the previous matches yet again.
Yep.
An early game advantage, a 6,000 gold lead for the past 10 minutes, and all of a sudden, Immortals have shrunk that down to 1,500. They've got Baron, they're pushing into the turrets, they're making that gold lead smaller and smaller and smaller until eventually it's going to become theirs as Flame getting himself caught out. Steric's Gauge going to go off, keeping him alive, giving him that shield that makes it so the burst will not be successful. Almost a dangerous situation there, ends up working out for them, and now Immortals have control in a time where they might be able to translate that into a nice Infernal Drake pickup as they're going to be spawning here in 5 seconds.
And the pace of this game is only accelerating right now. Minions pushing up the mid wave, Immortals wants to defend those, but they also want to be able to control this Infernal Drake as they are able to stand toe-to-toe with EnVy in these team fights now.
Immortals has so much poke too, like you mentioned earlier, the piercing arrows, the rockets coming out from the Corki. EnVy has to be so decisive if they want to jump in on these guys, and they just decide it's not worth it. They yield the dragon.
Yeah, especially after what happened when they were trying to get control up in that jungle. They had a 6,000 gold lead in this game, Clayton, and now they do not. you prefer Clayton or CaptainFlowers?
Either one works. I'm pretty comfortable with both. When I first started amateur casting, it was kind of weird that more people knew me as Flowers than as Clayton, since, you know, it was not my actual name.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for someone to tune into the stream and be like, yes, Flowers, that is correct.
No, I kind of... You can use whichever one you want. They both work. They're both good.
Oh my goodness, but Immortals is just going to continue this push because they still have the Baron buff. And Ninja flashes!
Shockwave going to be used. Cody Sun getting himself away from that as Dardoch's going to be taken low. There's your damage. There's your burst. Adios, Pobelter. The Rockets have found him. Olleh's going to be next. 3 dead.
And nothing is safe or off limits in this game between these two teams because they're willing to go for plays and they haven't been great at warding against them. Flame was in the mid lane there while Immortals was trying to get too much, and they're probably going to lose a fourth.
LirA's going all the way in. Cody Sun trying to fight it off. One more attack will do it. LirA cuts it a little bit close, but he knew what he was doing, and he makes it almost the ace. Flame, the last man standing.
Yeah, and after all that, we're at a 2,000 gold difference. So you kind of had this creeping feeling in your head as you've experienced casting all of EnVy's games so far this year that even if they have a lead, they're going to lose it sometime.
Right.
And they kind of lost it, but now they're starting to get it right back because this is going to be a bloodbath right here. So Seraph gets the ult on Olleh. Olleh gets his ult canceled almost immediately, and Flame just straight up wasn't there, so he could not set up any barrels with which to kite back into. He pushed mid lane, he got the turret. Immortals was hoping to get the inner tier 2 as well as the mid tier 1 right at the start of that, but it costs him 4 deaths and only makes LirA more fed.
This game is such a rapidly swinging pendulum back and forth as these teams just find ways to punish each other's mistakes one after the other. And we're kind of waiting to see which one of them shores up and eliminates some of those bigger mistakes sooner, because they're clearly going to have an edge when both sides are constantly making those errors.
Yeah, and one thing we almost have to consider with that is they have not been super efficient at closing out the game. So that means we're getting later in the game. They're still good at farming. They're getting even more gold because they're fighting and killing so much. So we need to start thinking about where this game is going to end up in the very late game when they're starting to hit 4 and 5 items. And quite honestly, I feel like EnVy would have a slight advantage there just because of the cohesion of their team composition. With that being said, though, you walk into one wrong Gangplank barrel, and that's all over, which is one of the reasons Flame is feeling pretty good about this GP, I feel like.
Flame with the Trinity Force, Sterix Gage, and Lorne Dominic's Regards now all completed. Also working as Ghostblade, on Ghostblade, as item number 4. Getting very big, very rapidly. We know the power of a Gangplank to build that economy as quickly as possible. The bonus gold from those barrels going to be cashing him in a lot of extra resources. As the top lane tier 2 falls, Pobelter going to be responsible for taking that one down. Valks himself out of any kind of danger. Apollo does not have the arrow up and ready to go after the last time he tried to nail Pobelter with it. So no catch opportunity.
Yeah, and EnVy definitely look a little out of sorts after squandering that lead, even though they were able to get a 4-kill fight on the back end of that bottom lane push by Immortals. But you look at the way Immortals is kind of setting up the map. They just had EnVy pushed in. They're getting a lot of farm on Flame, and Dardoch just goes in.
Jungler 1v1, arrow finds its mark. There's your follow-up CC, and Dardoch is donezo. Ninja grabbing that one.
And it's situations like that where you just have to ask why.
Why are you there?
Red buff's not up. It just tunnels over the wall. No one on his team is close by. So a few really poor plays there. Dardoch did get the smite. Most likely made the aggressive call when they went to steal that Baron. But aside from that, it's been a rough game.
Questionable decisions being made by members of both teams so far this game. As EnVy now sees their opportunity to push up into enemy territory. They've got one member of the opposition still down for the next 20 seconds. This tier 2 turret should fall rather easily in a 5v4 scenario. Seraph going to be putting some pain onto that one along with Apollo. The wave clear coming in from Immortals, though, actually manages to keep it alive, if ever so barely.
Yeah, and we got a death cap on a Ninja as well, so the Shockwave could potentially just blow someone up if we get the right type of fight. This game is only getting more and more explosive. And as you mentioned, yeah, EnVy finally getting some ward control here as Baron's up in 16 seconds. So this time they don't have to face check while getting the ward control. So hopefully they can be the ones to get the pick.
Right, but with those shockwaves online, with the barrels online we were already talking about, there's so many big plays that could be made. Olleh's gonna be taken out as Cody Sun gets shockwaved in. A double kill for Ninja. Dardoch's got no choice but to tunnel out. There's 3 left alive on Immortals, but there's 5 for Envy, and Baron is their call this time.
Yep, but there's still the enemy
Smite
smite
fight.
right up. So do they go for the smite fight? Do they play this slow? There's 30 seconds on the death timers of that dual lane. This is smart. They're on it with the Nautilus and the Kha'Zix. Ninja's got his zone up, but Hakuho's down!
Hakuho gets himself deleted by Pobelter.
Flame
Gonna be
can
one
still
down.
flash if he
Side
wants.
of Envy.
Same with Dardoch.
Dardoch wants to go in. He's not going to find it. Already secured by LirA, and Dardoch suicides. Apollo grabbing the killing spree onto that one. Ultimately 1-for-1 there in that Baron fight. Pobelter and Flame both running away. No way to catch up to them just yet. Enchanted Crystal Arrow going to be off cooldown momentarily. Envy still wants to make something happen if they can. LirA is in hot pursuit and not stopping. Goes for Pobelter, grabs the reset, gets out. Now almost taken down. Flame gets shockwave, trying to run away. There comes the depth charge. Arrow onto Olleh. Ninja looking for even more damage. One more hit's going to do it. Riptide. Cody Sun, what are you doing? Dredge line for the double kill.
Oh my goodness. Clayton, we got to catch our breath after that one because that fight was so long that we saw 2 Ashe arrows within the duration of the engagement. So a lot of chaos. Envy seems to invite that type of chaos in their games, as does Immortals as they lead the league in deaths per game. But this time, it looks like Envy may have broken the game open as they win back-to-back team fights, get Baron, and a bunch of turrets.
Break the game open, break the base open. Bottom lane inhibitor is done. Middle lane inhibitor is going to go with it. The inhibs will fall shortly thereafter. The team is still Baroned up. Envy is capable of throws. We have seen it so many times, but this is a position that looks very secure.
Yeah, and I've seen Immortals come back in some plenty of games as well. So this is the back end after the failed Baron steal. We know Orianna can really enhance the movement, so that's why LirA gets the ball, gets sped up by distance, also sped up by his ultimate, and he leaps over the wall, so he's really closing the distance, flashes through to get the kill, but then they continue to fight. Flame sees a kill in his eyes, and we talked about this. This is hero ball by Immortals. They are not playing as a team. Everyone is just trying to do their own thing. Arrow misses Flame, just bullseye onto Olleh, and then Seraph is a mega tank, so once he's got the turret on him, he can weave that dredge line right between the turret and the wall to finish off that kill, and it's a 14 kill advantage now for Envy.
25-11 with an 8,000 gold lead. Elder Drake is up. Why take one huge global super buff when you could have 2 of them?
Yeah, and this is a powerful elemental Drake. It's been buffed for the 2017 season a little bit. It lasts 30 seconds longer. Just a quick recap, it gives you this true damage burn every time you hit someone that is 45 damage base, plus an extra 45 for every elemental Drake stack. So that's 180 true damage over time with any application of damage. So it makes any volley, any Zyra plant really just kind of chunk you down, and not to mention it increases the bonuses of your elemental Drakes as well. So with 2 inhibitors down, with the Baron, with the Elder, you can't mess this up, Envy.
Everything is there.
You got this.
Everything is there. We got a whole bucket stuffed full of every recipe for success you could ask for, and all Envy has to do is close the deal.
Yeah, Immortals, not one to wait for their fate to be decided. They want control, so I'm expecting Immortals to try some type of engagement, although they don't have very many tools for it, with the Varus as their main initiation.
Immortals knows this is their last stand. If you fall here, the game is over. LirA positioned on the flank. Ready. Control ward trying to be eliminated. Olleh is done for. Ninja unstoppable. Another nice arrow. Going to be setting that one up. Inhibitor number 3. You're toast. The Nexus turrets now the targets as Envy looks to finish this game off and find their first win in spring 2017. Dardoch looking to stop him, going to be exhausted, trying to find the damage onto Apollo. The burst comes down. Dardoch still going to be taken out. Hakuho getting himself away. LirA going to be forced back. Seraph into the fight again. Nexus turret number 1 is down. Nexus turret number 2 is 2. And ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in spring 2017, victory for Envy.
And now the challenge becomes closing out the series. It's got to feel good to be able to get that one. They had many kills in that one, I believe. By the end of it, it was 27 deaths for Immortals. So, good start. Obviously, you want the game to be cleaner, but ultimately all that matters is they get the victory. In the end, they were able to run down some kills down the stretch and finally break the base. It's a start.
It's a start, right. At the end of the day, their Nexus exploded. Yours did not.
Yeah.
It was a success. Could have been a cleaner success. Could have been a little bit more well thought out at different points, but a success nonetheless.
Yeah. And we talk about some of our pregame stories coming in. LirA